Right. Whatever it is, you are going to look at me. I really appreciate you, Chima, for your excellent presentation. In fact, you have done half of my lecture, and it's very exciting. Somebody is doing that. But my topic will be the future of theological and missional formation. The full text is available to you, I believe. Therefore, I'm not going to read the whole text. But I will highlight several points. Certainly, this radical shift in global Christianity has a huge implication to theological paradigm and theologization process. Tomorrow's theological education will have to be faithful to the message of the scriptures and the context where people find themselves. Taking seriously the context of the global South, especially as Christianity is growing, it is imperative for us to see what the Spirit is doing and telling us and leading us into. What are some of the marks that we begin to see already? The first, the top-down theologization will have to be seriously reviewed. Rooted in a long magistrate tradition, the process of theological formation has been largely restricted to the learned and properly trained clerical and theological specialists. And certainly, talks like grassroots theology will become increasingly important. This grassroots theology will be born of the real context of everyday life where constant mission engagement takes place. Theologization has to be democratized so that every believer participates in this process. Second, already mentioned, theology should draw from lively mission exercises of practitioners as much as specialized theologians. In the past, certainly there is a dualistic mindset. The theory-practice divide has been around here. But this theory-practice divide is a superficial outcome of the modernist Enlightenment thinking and Christian experiences, especially from the global South, based on its interpretation of the gospel and daily interaction with the social environment, especially the religious environment, will have to take experience seriously in the theological process. Third, theologians who receive from the global South and increasingly even from the North will be more part-time theologians. With several ministerial hats on him or her, there will be denominational leaders, mission leaders involved in pastoral ministries, and on and on. Of course, there is a huge challenge in their life managing this, and what kind of serious theological reflections can be born of this busy life. Now, this is a very superficial, quick look at the future theologization process, and it already provides several implications to us all. Let me read this paragraph. If the process and main players of theological formulation have to change, it will have a massive impact on the training of Christian workers and theological thinkers. At the same time, local congregations will bear more responsibility in theological formation, first informally, but in some cases formally. This is where grassroots theological formation takes place. In that case, the role of a pastor will be significant as the leader of this theological process, as a facilitator to encourage broad participation of parishioners in the process, and one who also sets theologically sound boundaries. This is a very tall order for an average pastor. That's why sound and contextually sensitive theological and ministerial formation becomes more essential. Now, there are two things that I'm going to unpack in the remaining short time. Two areas needing urgent attention in missional formation. Now, you will notice that why I changed the language from theological formation to missional formation. It is important to clarify that the distance between theology and mission will be extremely closer than it has been in the past. This closeness or overlap is due to two considerations. First, future theology, just like in the past, will take context very seriously. Often, a theological process will be motivated by a contextual issue. Secondly, I suggest that mission is defined as the introduction of the transforming power of the gospel to every aspect of human life. The role of the missioner or a believer is essential as he or she not only introduces the gospel to the world, but also fosters an interaction between the two through the life, work, and the words of the missionary. I'll focus on two particular areas requiring our urgent attention. The first one is a very epistemological issue. Center versus fringe, or subject versus object. The received model that was shaped in the last half a century or even more in the Western Christianity, it is basically a movement of the gospel carrier from A to B. It happens from the Christian West to the heathen West. It was unidirectional, or it is a movement from a Christian center to non-evangelized fringes. The center is described not only as Christian, but also geopolitically privileged. In fact, it's an epistemological issue with the duality of subject and the object of mission. When Christianity introduced, again, I think it is important for me to qualify it. It was not designed, this paradigm is not designed for the world. The given social circumstance has brought into this shape. Therefore, it is very unfair for the West to point our all fingers to the West. Koreans would have created the same paradigm, or almost a similar paradigm, if we were in the place. But as far as the perspective of the receivers is concerned, that's where I'm coming from. When Christianity introduced in a political context, especially colonization context, to the eyes of the object of mission, it is definitely a power issue. There are several implications. First, missionary sending, unfortunately, this paradigm has left a distorted shape of mission, and which we need to deconstruct, some of which. First, missionary sending and missionary receiving is mutually exclusive in this paradigm. A church or nation is either receiving or sending missionaries. The world is missionally divided into two complex parts: missionary sending subjects and missionary receiving objects. And although the division is primarily religious or Christian, very unfortunately, it is also political, cultural, economic, and even racial. Again, it is important for me to stress it was not an intentional design for the whole world, but this is what we have received. Second, mission has been understood as a movement across geographical boundaries, along with cultural and religious ones. And most likely picking up the goal component of the Great Commission, modern mission history is full of heroic records of missionaries who left the comfort of home and braved all the adverse elements, including hostility from fellow humans. However, this has created an unhealthy understanding that mission takes place strictly outside of one's own geographical location. The word foreign was one word most frequently used to describe this form of understanding. Consequently, missionaries at home are exceptions and a rule. Now, it is important for us to keep this against what the Scripture is teaching us about mission. When Jesus said, "As the Father has sent me to the world, so I sent you," as much as we take the Great Commission seriously. Third, unfortunately, in this paradigm, mission, therefore, is not a call for everyone. It is restricted to a few specialists because of the cross-cultural or cross-geographical nature of their work. You have to select, train, deploy, support, and further support. Very unfortunately, mission was done by specialists, and the majority of Christians are either praying for the missionaries or simply sending money to support them. Now, this dualistic epistemology